Alright guys, so welcome back into another PGA DFS video. This week we got the 3M Open, which is going to be played at TPC Twin Cities. It's the second time that this event has been held here, and it's one that I've been looking forward to quite a bit. But we got a problem this week. 5 of the players that I was going to be on this week already decided that they don't want to play this week, so it's going to make the player pool a lot tougher this week. It's going to be a week where I think the number of 6 for 6 lineups across the cut line is going to be very small. Heck, the number of 5 out of 6 lineups might be pretty limited as well. But that being said, it is a week where you could attack it knowing that, hey, if I get 6 for 6 across the cut line, there's a pretty solid chance that I'm going to have a huge week. So it kind of goes both sides. It's a little bit more risky this week due to, some of the players that we want to be on not going to be playing in it, but also you could really hit big if you do get 6 for 6 across the cut line. And there are some 7K players that should make the cut that might not pop too much, but, they should be able to make the cut, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But I do want to do the quick recap of last week. So last week was a very interesting week. It was a roller coaster ride for me the whole week. So first of all, the second overall stat fit, the 4th player in a model, Jon Rahm, ended up winning. It was kind of an eventful tournament in general with that. In the final round, people complaining about his shot or whatever. Whatever, he still won. Now, last week I said like 4 times, maybe even more than that. I'm like, Jon Rahm is the one player this week that I'm not on, I'll probably regret. And yeah, I pretty much instantly regretted that. But the players on the top end that we decided to fade were pretty solid. But really, man, on Thursday, pretty much the whole day up until, pretty much the end of the round, I was feeling great about the player pool, minus like Xander Schauffele. He had a horrible round, but I kind of thought that he would make the cut. And then like Webb struggled at the end. Adam Hadwin struggled at the end of the Thursday round. I think Daniel Berger struggled at the end of the round as well. Then come Friday, I'm like, I was feeling really good the whole morning. I'm like, this is starting to align. It's looking like it's going to be a big week. Turns out Daniel Berger ended up hitting a ball into the water on his last hole from the fairway. Missed a 5-foot putt, double bogeyed, missed the cut. That sucked. Nick Taylor, who was a value play that I was really high on last week, dude had a horrible eye, it looked like, in his second to last hole. Ended up having to punch out, hit into the rough again, and ended up double bogeying. And then Webb Simpson, all these guys that I'm talking about are strong bogey avoidance players. Webb Simpson hit 5 shots total into the water going into his last hole. He had a chance to potentially birdie and make the cut. Heck, the hole before that, he had missed like a 10-foot putt. He wasn't making as many putts as he normally does, but for him to shoot 5 shots in the water and still have a chance to make the cut, I don't know. It was an interesting week, but I thought I was dead in the water come Friday. Saturday, it's like whatever. Sunday, thankfully, Xander and Harris English ended up having the early tee time, ended up getting a top 15 finish, and a couple of my cash builds ended up being right on that cash line where you're not winning the total prize that you should be for like a cash build, the full double up, but you're, winning a decent percent of it. And then Jon Rahm's 2-stroke penalty actually ended up helping me to where those lineups actually cashed fully. So it was an interesting week. I know it seemed like a lot of the lineups were dead in the water come Friday, and then, Sunday came around, and it was just such a weird week. It was either you were unlucky at the start and then got very lucky on Sunday, or kind of went the other way, it seemed like, where you got lucky at the start and then come Sunday you got unlucky because a lot of the guys that had a PMT time really struggled. So very interesting week all around, but we'll get into this week. So the 3M Open. So some of the key stats that we're going to be looking at this week are going to be strokes gained total, strokes gained approach. It's pretty much just a strokes gained week. I did walk the course last year, which was very fun. This was a very fun course to watch, especially like these no-name players where not many people are following them, and you're just like watching them grinding out a birdie putt or a par putt. It was very fun. But strokes gained, this is a strokes gained course in general. Now, you can look at strokes gained off the tee, but I'm going to be looking at total driving. You do have to hit it accurate somewhat, although the rough is not penalizing. What is penalizing is that there are some water hazards. So bogey avoidance will be a nice stat to look at, especially if you're just trying to, figure out who's going to make the cut, and then birdie or better percentage. I'll be looking at again this week. So some of the players that are in great recent form, it's very limited this week. You got Lucas Glover, who's been a stud since the break, really just been dominating a bunch of top 25 finishes. You got Scott Stallings there, who's made 5 cuts. Henrik Norlander also made 5 cuts in a row. And then Charles Howell has been looking really good. Or sorry, not Charles Howell. He'll be on the next slide. Richie Walensky has actually made 5 straight cuts in a row, so decent there. And then I mentioned Charles Howell. Charles Howell actually has good course history, but for course history, we're going to be looking at last year's results, and we're also going to be looking at 2 comp courses. Now, normally, or last year I had looked at the Players Championship as a comp course. Obviously, we can't look at that because this year they didn't have that event. Well, they did, but they couldn't finish it. So for comp course history, Charles Howell had a 23rd finish at this course last year, and then he had 2 top 12 finishes at the comp courses that we're looking at. Matthew Wolff won this event last year, but also made the cut at one of the comp courses that we're looking at. Brian Harmon had a top 10 finish here last year, and then also made 2 straight cuts at the comp courses. Sam Ryder had a good week last year. Made the cut, T40, and then he also has 2 top 30 finishes at the comp courses that we're looking at. So it is definitely an interesting week. We don't have the best data to go off of just because this event has only been played here 1 year. So let's get into the player pool for this week. All right, guys, so getting to the player pool for this week, the top end is pretty loaded, as you kind of would expect. DJ, yeah, he's going to be an interesting play this week. Obviously, last week he really struggled, but last week it really wasn't a good course for him, especially, with him struggling with his driver. That was pretty much my biggest worry with him, and that's why I faded him last week. I do think he should be able to bounce back pretty well this week. He does great out as a top 10 stat fit. I mean, this course is pretty much designed for a player like DJ to really go out and do well. But that being said, Tony Finau is pretty much the exact same player. Now, I don't know if you guys caught the betting podcast last week, but Hazy was, his top favorite bets were Xander, Tony Finau, and Jon Rahm. So I was messaging him saying, I really hope that Tony Finau kind of does poorly to close out this week, because I really like him for the 3M Open. You look at last year, he had a top 23 finish in his first start here. He is a top 3 stat fit. He grades out really well. So he's 13th in birdie or better percentage. He's top 30 in strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, and strokes gained approach. So this really grades out as a course that Tony Finau should go out and be able to dominate. Tommy Fleetwood's an interesting play. I don't really have to touch on this too much. It's the first time that we're seeing him back. Yes, this is a course that he should be able to play well at, but we just haven't seen him yet. So it is a little bit more risky. Definitely don't play him in cash. Paul Casey, I do kind of feel bad for people that rostered Paul Casey last week with that quadruple bogey. Really last week it was just a matter of you never felt comfortable with any of your players just because one bad shot could have kind of cost you the week. And that's kind of what happened with people that had Paul Casey in their builds last week. He still almost managed to come back and make the cut, but it was his only missed cut on the year. And like I said, really only one bad shot kind of cost him. He does rank out as a top 5 stat fit this week. He's top 10 in strokes gained off the tee, total driving, ball striking, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approach. So I do really like Paul Casey as a play this week, but really whenever I'm Paul Casey, kind of just it doesn't do well for me. And that kind of can be said for Lucas Glover. It does seem kind of dangerous to pay up for Lucas Glover at this price point. That's just kind of the week that we have, especially with those, 5 other players that I really want to be on that kind of decide not to play. So Lucas Glover is a pay-up option that we might just have to go with. He had a 2-7 finish here last year, and he had a top 10 finish at one of the other comp courses that we're looking at. He's been in great recent form since the break. Really just been a stud. 5 straight make cuts in a row. He does grade out as a top 10 or top 15 stat fit. So Lucas Glover is a guy that should make the cut, and he could even, top 20 once again. Harris English I do like as well. He managed to sneak into another top 20 finish. That's what we're going to start calling him. Harris top 20 English. But I do like him as a play. Only has 2 missed cuts on the year. The only problem with Harris English this week is 1, his price point, and 2, they missed the cut here last year, so it is a little bit more risky. I'm not sure we can play him in cash. I do like to see at least a make cut at an event, but obviously this event has only been played here once, so it's not as risky. Let's get down into the mid-tier now. All right, so we're going to talk about Doc Redman. So Doc Redman, I was a little bit worried about him last week. That's why he was only a mid-exposure play last week, because course history did matter. He, really struggled last week, but before that, he had been a stud. He does great out as a top 10 stat fit this week. If he can get it going with his putter again, he's going to be fine. This is a course where you just kind of have to keep giving yourself opportunities to make putts, and, you're going to be set up well, and you're eventually going to make some of those putts. That kind of works in Doc Redman's favor. The only problem with Doc Redman is he had a miscut at this event last year, and he had a miscut at one of the comp courses as well. So it does worry me somewhat. We get into Henrik Norlander. Henrik Norlander didn't play at this course last year, and his only comp course history is a top 10 finish. So that is what we do like to see. He has been a very, solid value play since break. But now we're paying $8.6K for him on DraftKings. Once again, that is just this week. He only ranks out as a top 30 stat fit, which is not great. But look at the comp course history. Look at his recent form. it's fine. I don't feel comfortable with it, but that's just the theme of this week, so he's not a bad play. Brian Harman's an interesting play as well. Not the best recent form, but he does have good course history and comp course history. T7 finisher last year, and then 2 top 35 finishes at the comp courses that we're looking at. He ranks out as a top 25 stat fit. Not a bad play, but definitely not a play you can play in cash. Low ownership GPP play there for you. Now we're going to get into the value tiers. Or not the value tier, the low tier. It's a very, very interesting week on the low tier this week. It's kind of like 2 weeks ago where a lot of them are the same play, and it's really going to be tough to kind of differentiate and figure out which ones you should be on more or less. It's kind of going to be an even split this week, and it's really the make or break point this week. All right, so we'll start off with Jonathan May. So he is a very interesting play here for the low tier. Now, he did have the miscut at the Workday Charity Open, but before that, he had been, 3 straight made cuts since the break. He does rank out, pretty well in some of the key stats that we want to look at. So 6th in stroke gain off the tee, top 20 in total driving and ball striking, and then he's top 50 in birdie or better percentage. So it's definitely only a GPP play, but I don't mind him. I wish he was a little bit cheaper though. Going a little bit lower, I think a lot of people are going to be on Will Gordon, and I definitely get it. If he's a little bit too popular, it might be, some chalk that you should think about fading. But he has been playing really well this whole year. T3 finished at the Travelers Championship and, didn't play poorly at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Missed the cut, though. He is top 15 in strokes gained off the tee and birdie or better percentage, which is something that we like to see. He does have a missed cut at one of the comp courses that we're looking at, though. Going a little bit lower, Carlos Ortiz is a pretty interesting play as well. I don't want to touch on all these options. Scott Stallings does grade out as someone that should make the cut. Obviously, he's been a cut maker since the break, 4 straight made cuts in the year. He does have 2 made cuts. Looking at comp course and looking at last year's results, he does grade out as a top 30 stat fit, so I don't mind Scott Stallings. Richie Rowensky, very, very interesting play for me this week. He's one of the few players that are kind of checking all the boxes: recent form, course history, and then stat fit. So he is a top 30 stat fit, which his stats aren't that great, but it's kind of the week, compared to everyone else in the field. He's a top 30 stat fit. He's been a stud since the break. 5 straight made cuts. He had a T46 finish here last year, and he had a T47 finish at one of the comp courses that we're looking at. So I don't mind Richie Rowensky. That's just kind of the week that we have. That's kind of the theme of this week. Now, there are other players in this pricing range that I do like as well. Don't want this video to go too long. So if you want to check out the rest of those plays, check out the 9 to 5 membership. It's $10 a month. The link is in the description below. Now I'll get into the value range. So the value range, I don't think we have to go this low to the value tier. If you want to, obviously you're trying to fit some of those studs in there. It's more risky. I don't think there's any cash plays that we can roll with down here, but there are some great, high upside GPP plays. We'll say Matthew Naismith, DJ Trahan. They do grade out as top 15 stat fits this week, but they've been in horrible recent form. If there ever were a week that they're going to go off, this would be the week, but not going to touch on them too much. Adam Schenk, I do like him as a play. So Adam Schenk's a guy that definitely can go low. You look at some of his starts in there, he's been able to go low. The Travelers Championship round 2 at a 65. Not bad, almost made the cut. Then he's had 2 top 40 finishes in a row. He has a miscut, and a T6 finish. He had a miscut last year, and then he had a miscut and a T6 finish at the comp courses that we're looking at. He is a top 15 stat fit this week. He's top 35 or better in total driving, ball striking, and birdie or better percentage. So, and also strokes gained approach. So he does grade out as someone that should be able to make the cut. I don't love it too much. And then we got Chesson Hadley there as well. Chesson Hadley is kind of the same play as Adam Schenk, where you can't really bank on a make cut, but if he does make the cut, he could show some upside. He has shown the ability to go low. I could see a top 25 finish for him, but he has a miscut and a miscut for his comp course and course history. He also grades out as a top 15 stat fit this week. Just not a great play. And then there are 2 players I want to talk about lower on. So we got Johnson Wagner here, who has made his last 2 cuts, but that's really it. That's all we get with him. He did make the cut here last year with a top 30 finish, which is, you like to see. And then his comp course history, he had a T37 finish. He doesn't really grade out that well as a stat fit, okay? Not good at all. He grades out as someone that should be right around the cut. But for that, at this price point, I'm fine with it. Then one of my kind of favorite GPP flyers is actually going to be Seamus Power down here. So he has made his last 3 cuts. Did have a T12 finish at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. That's the only time that we've seen him, though, since the break, which is not preferred. He is the top 30 stat fit this week. He does rank 7th in birdie or better percentage, which we really like this week. He is top 60 in total driving and ball striking, which is really good as well. Doesn't have any course history here, but he did have 1 comp course finish, which is a T61, so obviously not that great. But at this price point, it's worth the risk. Now, like I said, this is a crazy week, okay? If you guys want to get some more information, dive a little bit deeper into it, this is kind of the week that 9 to 5 kind of separates itself, where the plays aren't as obvious. So check out the membership page. It is $10 a month. Get the write-up, get the first look build, get the cheat sheet, get the stats, get it all. It is a great value there, $10 a month. The link will be in the description below. All right, guys, that's all I have for you guys this week. Let's have a good 3M Open. I'm pretty pumped up for this week. It's one of my favorite events. I got to walk the course last year, like I said, so pretty fun event. And as always, let's keep cashing. Thanks, guys.